Today, part two in my conversations about checkout free experiences. My guest today is Krishna Motukuri, co-founder and CEO of Zippin. Enjoy. Krishna Motukuri, welcome to Morning Newsbeat. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
So I can remember, and I guess now it's got to be something like 4 or 5 years ago. I went to San Francisco and I was going to look at what a new Amazon Go store that had been opened there. And while I was there, I had a chance to go both into what I'm assuming was your very first installation, as well as the Standard Cognition. They had their first installation too. And I can remember thinking to myself that you were in a better neighborhood, but they had a bigger store.
That's correct.
And so I'm always curious about, I mean, most people, I'm one of those people who thinks, incorrectly, I'm sure, this all started with Amazon, and deciding they wanted to do checkout free stores. But so my question to you, just first question is, so when did the light bulb go on over your head?
Thanks. So obviously, I can't really speak for Amazon and when they really started building this, but our journey started in 2014. Okay. So like late 2014, I just come back from an overseas gig in South Africa. And, my wife and I, we had our first child. So one, evening, one afternoon, she just calls me while I'm outside saying, hey, we're out of milk. We need milk today. So on your way home, can you please pick it up? So I do what I normally do, which is, I go to this, neighborhood grocery store, which we like a lot. We usually go on the weekends, but this time, I was going to shop on a weekday evening to pick up. I stop, I park, I go in, I take one step in, and see these long lines in order to check out. And I was like, okay, for one item, am I going to spend that much time? I'm going to spend 5 to 10 minutes waiting in line. I wouldn't do it. So, took a U-turn, went to a convenience store and picked up something there and then went home. Of course, my wife didn't like the fact that it was not organic, from the convenience store. It wasn't her favorite. But that was
You avoided the line, but you pissed off your wife.
That's correct, exactly. And that got me really thinking, that was a light bulb moment. Like the customers really like their grocery stores, like the way, they shop and everything looks. But, and of course, grocery stores spend a lot of money attracting customers, right? Traffic takes a lot of money. And I spent like 20 years in e-commerce, so I understand how it costs. And the store did everything right. They had the product that I wanted on the shelf, which takes a lot of effort in forecasting, right? But the transaction didn't happen. Conversion didn't take place. And that's actually because of this bottleneck called checkout. So we looked at we saw the opportunity. Americans spend over 100 hours a year waiting in lines. A lot of it is actually in retail stores, checkout lines. So we saw it was a big opportunity. So went ahead and started building it. That was 2014.
So what was your technology background beforehand that where you looked at this and said, this is achievable? Because in 2014, I don't even know when things like Easy Pass and TSA PreCheck started to become really popular.
Correct. Yeah. So my background academically, I'm a trained computer scientist. So I have a bachelor's and master's. And I've worked mostly in e-commerce, supply chain, retail, right? So I kind of understand those things in the back of my mind. My co-founder is from AI and computer vision. So it was a very good combination. We understood that, okay, this is the trajectory computer vision is taking. Cameras are actually dropping in cost significantly. The compute on which the computer vision models run, the deep learning models run, is also dropping. So we also looked at those opportunities and saw this was the right time.
Was the grocery industry, to your mind, the low-hanging fruit? I mean, was that the place where did you immediately gravitate to grocery, or did you think about a number of different?
That's right. That's a very, very good question. So in fact, it took us, so this was 2014, we started building it. The technology itself was very complicated, right? It was a very complex piece of technology. And by 2016, we had our first prototype ready internally. And we started looking at the go-to-market opportunities. Clearly, grocery is a huge opportunity. It's a big industry, and eventually we expect all of these to happen. But we noticed that the immediate ROI, the biggest bang for your buck, comes in places where the lines are exceptionally long, right? And the shoppers' willingness to try something new is very high, okay? Because the lines are so high. So we gravitated towards stadiums and transportation hubs. So
Mhm.
stadiums clearly, you have the job of feeding tens and thousands of people in a very short period of time. Everybody wants to show up in halftime. Lines are very long, 15, 20 minutes. So if we give them something new, they would try that. And same thing with transportation hubs. People are short on time, so we focused on those.
So and it's interesting you say that. I was just talking to somebody who went to the Super Bowl in LA, and they said it was I guess clear was the technology that was being used to get people into the stadium. So clearly you're not the only ones who said, okay, that the stadiums, ballparks, things like event venues makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that was actually another one in a series of light bulb moments for us. Most people, when they talk about checkout free, they say cashierless, implying that you're taking cashiers out, and so that's somehow good, right? Which is implying that you're saving labor costs. All of that stuff is important for retailers, but the real opportunity is removing the bottleneck. Frictionless. When you have frictionless, you are removing friction, which means more throughput happens. And so the venues and transportation hubs see a big jump in revenue because customers who would otherwise not want to walk into the store, there are deterred people like me who didn't go in to get the gallon of milk, are actually now going to be, then have no reason not to go in.
Is it also a problem, an obstacle that, I mean, you come from the e-commerce business, the grocery industry was the slowest industry to be converted to the notion that e-commerce makes, maybe not the last, but it's one of the last industries to sort of pick up on the idea that e-commerce could be a big factor in their go-to-market strategies. And in fact, there are still a lot of grocers out there that do not have any kind of e-commerce component to their businesses.
That's right. Yeah, so I think I definitely credit my e-commerce background with the way we design the overall solution. If you take a closer look at the way we think of stores that we are automating, we're retrofitting and automating, we think of them as essentially micro fulfillment centers, the same way e-commerce companies treat them, like they have micro fulfillment centers. Now, in an e-commerce world, an employee is picking on behalf of the customer. Right. In our stores, the customer is picking on their own, but everything else behind the scenes actually works like the micro fulfillment center. And if anything, if you think about the way Zippin stores work, like checkout free stores work, every action that customers are doing, every shoppers doing is instantly digitized into the cloud. Mm-hmm. And the actual transaction that they're doing, which is picking products and then just walking out, that transaction is being conducted in the cloud on an e-commerce platform. So you will see that physical commerce and e-commerce will converge in a big way. And that'll also be an impetus for grocery stores to move into this new world where it makes everything easier for them.
It's funny you say that, because I know my reaction to when I started going into Amazon Fresh grocery stores was that they struck me like dark stores that just happen to let customers in. I mean, that was my reaction to it. That's correct. And it sounds like that's very much what you're describing.
That's right. Yeah, there is. It's not by accident. It is by design, right? So there were a lot of really good things that everybody learned while doing e-commerce, like the efficiency of moving products, remembering where things are because you have to fulfill other people's products. Stores, I think, naturally started with the idea of, okay, let's make discovery interesting. So, there is this idea of, people finding things and the joy they get. But on the efficiency side, there wasn't a lot of investment. And so we can combine both of those things into one. Yeah.
Yeah. So describe at a store that's using Zippin technology. Yeah. Describe the customer experience.
That's right. Okay. So in a Zippin powered store, shoppers walk up to the entrance and they check in. They can check in using a credit card, like a plastic credit card, take it out of your wallet, or a mobile wallet on your phone, or an app the retailer has. You can use any methods to check in, even palm
You don't need to be a member. Like an Amazon Go store, you need to have the Amazon app. I can just walk in with my MasterCard.
You can just take your credit card out and then that's it. You scan in, you check in, and all the store does at that time is they check that it's a valid card, pre-authorized for a certain amount, that the retailer sets, and then the customer walks in. Then they shop naturally. The way they would normally do, just take stuff off of the shelves, put it in their own bag, or take it in their hands, and then just walk out. When they exit the store, the system knows that this customer has exited, and that's because we have a network of cameras on the ceiling that actually keeps track of everybody, right? Without using facial recognition. It's like a dot on a map. We track everybody. And when they exit, the system knows, and then it actually sends the receipt for the items they bought.
So but it sounds like one of the things that you're able to bring to it is some level of sort of superior analytics, right? In other words, I mean, it's always been sort of my contention that most retailers don't do a particularly good job, especially in store, in terms of, I mean, they may have actionable data, but they don't actually act on it, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so but it sounds like what you're able to do is give them more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we call it actually browser cookie for a physical store. That's what the Zippin platform offers for retailers. Now, what does a browser cookie do for most retailers in the e-commerce world is it lets you track what the shopper is doing, right? Which products they're looking at, how long they've been on a particular page, they added to the cart, they abandoned the cart, you get all that information. Physical stores never had that, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas with our technology, this is the first time retailers can actually get the same functionality. They know how long a shopper was looking at a particular product, okay? Whether they picked a product and then changed their mind after certain seconds, right? Or they actually changed it after seeing a competitive product and put it on a different shelf. Right. So all this information is now available to retailers in a privacy-friendly way that becomes pretty much, kind of levels the playing field with e-commerce, for e-commerce companies, yeah.
How, to what you said in a privacy-friendly way, what does that mean exactly? In other words, if I walk in and they get my credit card, I mean, to what extent after I leave, I mean, they have to retain, I assume they have to retain that information, but are they able to act on it? Are they able to market against it? Or what are they, to what, or does that become sort of siloed off that nobody has access to it again?
No, so that's a good question. So when a customer checks in, right, there is a unique ID that obviously is being assigned to them. If it's a plastic credit card, it's the fingerprint of the card, right? If you have a loyalty program, then you can link it to the loyalty number. Everything the customer is doing is actually, any significant events are actually recorded as metadata, which means that all that information is available to retailers, right? So this customer interacted with 5 products, named products, and then they walked out with 2 products, right? And this is exactly what happens. So it's almost like a stream of information that's available. This is something that, just as on e-commerce websites, you would disclose to your customers, so they're not surprised by it. That's essentially what happens. What we do make sure is that there is no additional data that goes in, like no video data that needs to be kept around, no visual, like no other information around they were carrying, a person their right hand versus left hand. I mean, that's all, we just scrub that.
Does the system, okay, so I walk in, I use my MasterCard,
yeah,
and it assigns me an ID number.
That's right.
If a week later I go walk in the store and use the same card, am I keeping the ID number?
That's correct. Yes.
What about if I use, the next time I go in, I have a Visa? Are they making that? Are you able to make that connection so that whether it's still Kevin? It's just that he has a couple of different cards.
So very good point. So the way we've designed the platform, the operating system, is we've designed it as a layer that is completely agnostic, okay, from visit to visit, okay. So even the card being used is actually kept at a separate layer, so the retailer has control over it. So we maintain a bit of a distance between that information so that our solution is fully GDPR compliant, privacy compliant, right? The retailer takes responsibility for saying, okay, look, if this card was used, I maintain that information, that fingerprint information, separate. So that allows each retailer to act on this in their own way, right? For example, they can say, look, I've got a loyalty program that has opt-in for all of this information, so I can have the customers use it. But if they have 2 separate credit cards, they're not linked to a loyalty program, I mean, we don't use any biometrics or anything to relate people across visits.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I can imagine, the appeal working both ways, right? In other words, if the system, if it's up to the retailer
Yes.
to make those connections, to say,
Yeah.
oh, Kevin's got both a Visa and a MasterCard, and we don't need to understand that. I mean, that makes sense.
Yep.
There's a part of me as a customer that says, well, yeah, I really don't want you making those connections. I really want you to be, I want you to have it all siloed off.
Yeah.
But the retailer wants to have that information, because otherwise you're sending, if you are, I mean, I assume you're able to market against this stuff in the sense that you can send me emails.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Although,
Yeah.
okay, let me go back. I'm stream of consciousness here. So I use if I have an app, that's one thing, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But if I use my credit card, they're not necessarily going to have any shopper information about me other than the credit card number.
Correct.
So they actually cannot then send me an email. How are they sending? Well, okay, how are they sending me a receipt?
That's a good question. So if you use a plastic credit card and you want to get a receipt, then there is a published website that you can go to, put in the last 4 digits of your credit card, expiration date, some information to pull up your receipt. So you should be able to do that. Okay. And broadly speaking, I don't know if you're familiar with the experience you have with Square POSs at many places, right? You're just using the card, but you can actually enter your phone number, receipt, or email, receive a receipt. And then from that point onwards, whenever you use any other Square POS with that card, it would actually be able to match it. Okay. So there are layers of tech that are available to retailers that, depending on the agreement they have with their customers, they should be able to take advantage of it. We do provide a stack of services that are essentially that a retailer can use to activate, tracking across visits if necessary. Okay. App is another, I just want to add one thing about why app has become popular for many retailers. It's because for a customer, it's actually, the very first time there is a very strong reason for them to share information with you, because they're getting a much superior experience. And you can't get that unless you actually have to go wait in line somewhere, right? People say, okay, let me put a kiosk where they can get a receipt, but there'll be a line there, right? Especially with, imagine our stadium stores. So many of them are very happy to actually download an app because that saves them time. And the app also becomes a very effective communication mechanism for the retailer because it has a lot more context, right? So that's the other reason why they're pushing that.
Did you ever consider an app only model? I mean, in the same way, because I think with Amazon Go, probably not so much in their licensed stores.
That's right.
If you go to an Amazon Go store, you need to have their app to get in.
That's good. So we do, because we are primarily a service provider to retailers. So we are what you would refer to as a licensed model, right? So we have customers that fit into both buckets. We have customers that are actually requiring an app. So you cannot access their store powered by Zippin unless you have an app. But of course, there are many customers like the stadium stores where they actually want to reduce the friction further for the customer for the visit. Yeah.
And in the stadium store, now you keep saying stadium stores, does your technology also allow people to go? Can they use it to actually get into the ballpark?
No. So these are actually concession stands and stores inside.
Okay. So what about crossover? Let's suppose I go to a store that's powered by Zippin.
Yep.
I use I use a credit card.
Yes.
And I buy XYZ.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep.
A week later, I'm at a football game. They have a stadium store that is powered by Zippin. I go in and I use the same card and I buy ABC.
That's right.
And then I'm at a different store in a different city at some point, or I'm at an airport, and there's a newsstand, right? And they're powered by Zippin. So I go in, I use the same card, I get MNO, okay, and I walk out.
Right.
Is your system collating that in the sense that maybe those retailers don't know, but you know that I am maybe a loyal Zippin customer. I may not be choosing the stores because of Zippin specifically, but I am choosing stores that offer a checkout free experience, and therefore
That's right.
that gives you something to market against?
Correct. It's a good question. Yeah. So obviously the platform that we're building is continuously growing. It's continuously evolving, right? As of today, we do not do what you described. Okay. Customers do know that they are going into a powered by Zippin store because there's a powered by Zippin logo, right? But there's no expectation that Zippin has a consumer-facing card or app. We have not done that for, again, if the retailer doesn't have a service and they want to use that, we have a because it was a vertically integrated stack, we provide that, but otherwise we do not do that. Yeah.
And I mean, because I can see why you would want that, but I can also understand why retailers would say, oh, no, you're not. These are our, I mean, again, I can see both sides of it. You'd like to have that information because it allows you to start to develop ideally a better product.
That's right.
Based on being able to cross-reference this stuff. But retailers, I can see retailers saying, no, they're our customers. You don't get access to that.
Absolutely. You're right. And, our guiding, star here, our North Star here is to build the most comprehensive, most powerful operating system that the retailers want to use. Okay. And it's perfectly fine for some retailers to say, look, I want to make sure this information is in a separate silo. But there are a number of retailers that actually would say, look, if you've got a turnkey solution that actually enhances the value for the shoppers, I would like to hear it, right? And of course, that progression we will make over the next several months. Yeah.
So are you an affordable option for like independent or regional store? I mean, I can understand, if Kroger or Albertsons or Walmart decided to do this, I mean, they got a lot of resources.
That's right.
But what about somebody who's got 3 stores in Ohio or 5 stores in Omaha? Can they, is this an affordable option for them?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, again, we already have examples of retailers, customers who are not, the as large as the ones you just mentioned. They have 2 stores, 3 stores, 6 stores. They do have plans to grow. Obviously, every small business wants to grow, right? But yeah, it is already pretty affordable. We've done ROI calculations. In fact, you will notice that, again, we haven't talked about our competitive difference,
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
So we talk about ROI in pretty much every communication we send out, because that's been very important. And when ROI is there, customers are actually deploying it for the right reasons. Yeah.
So before we get to the competitive situation, so are you an easy retrofit on a store that exists, or is this really designed for stores for ground up? You're starting all over.
No. So this is designed for a retrofit. Okay. And we do have stores. We have a common mix of stores. We have some that are net new and there are some that are retrofit. So we already do that. Yeah. Okay.
And so if I were building a store, well, let's suppose I'm building a store, right?
Yeah.
Or I've got a store and I decided I got, something I've got 12 checkouts.
Yep.
So, but they need replacing because they're old. Mm-hmm. Or I'm building a new store and I'm going to put in 12 checkouts. How does roughly speaking, if I said, okay, well, I'm not going to have 12 checkouts. I'm going to put in this system.
Correct.
How does the cost of putting in your system in a store with 12 that normally would have 12 checkouts, how does it compare to my going to one of the traditional checkout companies and putting those in?
That's right. Yeah. So from most of our customers that are looking at this technology, that comparison alone isn't actually the right comparison, mainly because you will find that obviously this technology will cost more than the checkout kiosks, right? Or checkout cash registers. The ROI comes from, I would say, a number of things, but I can point out 2 that are very important. And I mentioned briefly. One is, of course, labor cost savings, right? The amount of time spent in checkout. And that actually, the savvy retailers will look at not just the actual time people are scanning, for customers, but how much do you have to dedicate, because you don't know what the variation in demand would be, right? You've got to have, 3 people at the cashier between that entire 60-minute time, and it's busy, even if there are 5-10 minute intervals, people are not coming in, right? So the utilization is pretty bad. So labor cost savings are quite significant. increase in revenue. Even stores that are not very busy will see an increase in revenue. Okay, and especially increase in sales per square foot, because space utilization is much better, for in this store. You remove all the checkout counters. You didn't just save the cost of the hardware. You didn't have to put. You actually save the square footage. Okay. And on top of it, you get benefits on real-time inventory tracking. This technology is throughout the store. So whatever's happening around the entire store, you know about it. You get advanced analytics and, of course, loss prevention, right? Anything you take off of any shelf is immediately recorded by the system. So it's practically impossible to shoplift, right? So all of those things together is what actually creates the ROI equation for customers. Now, if you have a 12 checkout counter store, and like that would be an additional saving that you would include in the equation, but it wouldn't be a direct comparison.
I want to go back to one other thing though. We talked about credit card versus app and stuff like that. What if somebody wants to spend cash?
Yeah, so
is there the ability to do that yet?
Yeah, so they do have the ability to do cash in a few different ways. It does defeat the purpose, as you can imagine, right? But you can do it, and people had to do it during the initial phase of the pandemic. They could use a reverse ATM to get a card, right, and use the card to conduct the transaction, and then walk out, and then cash out the rest of the amount, right? If they really wanted to do a live transaction where they want to walk out, I mean, they could always, for example, in cities where the law requires, you would still have like one employee that's available in case somebody wants it, and then you just do a full checkout for them. Yeah.
Okay, so you started to talk about competition before. So here's the scenario. I'm a retailer.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, I want you to make the elevator pitch. But yesterday I was on the elevator with the guy from Standard Condition, and tomorrow I'm going to be on the elevator with the guy from Amazon, and then the day after that I'm going to be on with somebody else.
Yeah.
So give me, and we're only going up 10 floors. So give me your quick elevator pitch on why I want to do business with you as opposed to any of the other guys.
Absolutely. Okay. So Zippin produces technology that delivers very high accuracy even in very busy stores. Okay. And that's extremely important for retailers because net margins very low, usually 2 to 5%. Okay. And when you have inaccuracies, when you have a loss, you're not losing the 2%. You're actually losing 50 times that, losing the entire sale, entire value of the product. Okay. So to get something that is actually let's say 99.9% accurate versus 90% accurate, is that you actually are wiping out your net margin 5 times over. Okay, because when you have inaccuracies, then you lose the entire value of the product. To deliver that very high accuracy necessary for retail to use this tech, we have a multimodal AI approach. We don't rely on just ceiling cameras. We combine it with sensors on the shelf. There are only 2 players in the market that do that, us and of course the large competitor you mentioned, as Amazon. Okay, so we took the view that accuracy is the most important thing in this technology. Okay, that comes first, because without that, it just becomes not unviable. Many of the other competitors have chosen to use cameras only, and so they're looking for opportunities where they could deploy and they can handle 5 to 10% shrink, for example, or inaccuracies. Okay, and so that's go ahead.
So where are you now in terms of stores? I mean, what kind of penetration do you have at this point? Are you in testing? How would you describe your sort of what the position where you are at the moment?
Yeah, so we're already seeing adoption picking up in sports and entertainment and transportation hubs, right? So we have a number of stores in venues in 13 states out of the 50 US states, right? So pretty much in most places, if you go to sport events, you'll see a Zippin store. We're also seeing adoption within a venue, right? Broader adoption. We have 9 stores at Denver Broncos Stadium. So if you go to the event, then no matter which level you are in, if you walk out, you'll likely see a Zippin powered store there. So that, again, that's another way to show like, these are stores where actually lots of people are shopping pretty close to each other. It creates one of the most complex challenges, and that's another part of our competitive pitch. Yeah.
So my last question would be, it wasn't that long ago that when you drove on a toll road, you had to stop at a toll booth to pay. And now that's, I mean, that virtually does not exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Easy Pass and it's and other companies like that have pretty much taken that over. So you
Yeah.
don't it, you know, and you know, people who travel a lot back in the before times and hopefully again in the after times,
Yeah.
you know, if you travel at all, you got to have TSA pre-check, and if you're smart, I think you have to have clear, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yep.
TSA pre-check on steroids, just simply because it does take friction out of an experience it's not as good. And so in virtually every airport in the country has some version of TSA pre-check and maybe clear. So at what point do you think, how long will it take to get to that kind of ubiquity? And I'm not just talking for your product,
Yep.
but for the whole notion of
Yep.
checkout free stores in
That's right.
general. I mean, will our kids, you know, at some point in their lives go, yeah, I remember when stores used to have checkout lanes, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, are we, how many years are we away from that kind of ubiquity?
Yeah. Okay, and I think, you know, as you do, I guess, I also believe that, you know, this is going to be there everywhere. Eventually, every single store will be checkout free. Nobody would ever want to say, like, I would like to walk up to a cashier and wait in line. That's not going to happen, right?
In the same way, nobody wants the good old days when you had to stop at a toll booth, right?
Exactly, exactly. Why would we do
Once
that?
you've done it, you never want to go back.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. And we're already seeing broad adoption happening in stadiums and airports and train stations, right? And these are areas where people are short on time, and the same things you're seeing in convenience stores as well, right? Convenience stores are meant for convenience, right? So anything that amplifies convenience is definitely something that's going to happen quicker than everything else, right? So you will see convenience stores picking up within the next 2 years. I would say grocery stores, you know, I would say within 5 years, they become pretty commonplace. You will see this technology in some form or the other in every grocery store that you visit.
Well, it's interesting because the more, I mean, it seems to me it is the kind of model, just in general, that that will develop, that likely will develop momentum. Right?
Yep.
Seems to
Absolutely.
me right once, because again, I mean, and I've said this ad nauseum on morning newsbeat and in speeches and things like that. I just remember going my first Amazon Go store, and it's like once you've done it, you go, I never want to wait online again. It just
Absolutely.
changes it actually changes your brain chemistry when it comes to lines.
Absolutely. And I make it a point to actually visit every store that is powered by Zippin that launches, right? Recently, I was in Charlotte, and it was amazing watching, you know, fans come out of that store and like they had never experienced checkout free before. And I have been seeing this for 3 years, right? Every time I go to a store, I see people come out and it's like new, you know,
Yeah.
everybody's so amazed. So I think that this is just inevitable. It's going to push everybody together. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how great is it to have a job where you make people happy? Right? Okay. So real quick, if people want to find out more about Zippin and they want to, so they can find out exactly how your model works and talk to you a little bit about maybe trying it in their stores, what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
Go to our website. It's www.getzippin.com or email us at info@getzippin.com.
Terrific. That's great. Well, listen, Krishna Motukuri, I really appreciate you doing this. I wish you the best of luck. I am a fan of the technology. I think it's going to change the world, and it's been great to talk to you. So thanks very much, and I hope we can talk again down the road.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
Take
Thanks.
care. Thanks.
Bye.